16th lecture on the book of Revelation. The main text is Revelation chapter 20. The title is The Millennial Kingdom. First, Satan is seized and thrown into the abyss, verses 1 through 3. Second, believers reign on thrones for 1,000 years, verses 4 through 6. Third, the battle of Gog and Magog, verses 7 through 10. Fourth, the great white throne judgment, verses 11 through 15. Read Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 3. And I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key to the abyss, and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil, or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss, and locked and sealed it over him, to keep him from deceiving the nations any more, until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be set free for a short time. An angel came with the key to the abyss and a great chain. The angel seized the devil and bound him for 1,000 years, then threw him into the abyss. Isaiah chapter 65, verse 17. The abyss is a place of spiritual darkness. The devil was seized and bound for 1,000 years. Thus, the devil will no longer be able to work in the world. The devil will no longer be able to deceive people. Therefore, people will sin no longer. After that, the devil will be set free for a short time. The devil will be set free for a short time after 1,000 years. At that time, there will be battles in Gog and Magog. The devil will entice Gog and Magog, and he will bring about war. This is further mentioned in verses 7 and 9. This refers to the kingdom of the 1,000-year reign. This shows the restoration of all creation. The fall of creation resulted from man's sins. The Garden of Eden ceased to exist. Now all of creation will be restored through the kingdom of the 1,000-year reign, or the millennial kingdom. The Garden of Eden will be restored. Revelation chapter 21, verse 5. Romans chapter 8, verse 21. Zechariah chapter 14, verse 20. Verse 4. There were those sitting on thrones. They were given the authority to judge. They are the believers in heaven. The believers will judge the world alongside Jesus. Here there are the souls of those who had been beheaded. They are the people who were martyred while testifying to the gospel and while obeying the word of God. They will be like kings alongside Jesus for 1,000 years in the millennial kingdom. They are people who did not worship the beast or his image. They are those who did not receive the mark of the beast on their foreheads or hands. These believers did not bow down before idols. They only worshipped God. They did not receive the mark of the beast on their foreheads or hands. We learned this in chapter 13. We believers will be like kings alongside Jesus for 1,000 years. We have royal authority. Here it says, they came to life. This is San. This is San in Hebrew. San means to return to life. This means to be resurrected. This means to change. Thus, at Jesus' second coming, believers will be changed instantly. They will meet the Lord in the air. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17. Therefore, the believers who gain spiritual bodies through their resurrection will enter the millennial kingdom, and they will be like kings. Isaiah chapter 65, verses 17 through 25. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 6. To return to life does not refer to rebirth. It is not rebirth. It is to be resurrected, changed, and be like kings with Christ in the millennial kingdom. Verse 5. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. The rest of the dead are those who did not believe. They are the unbelievers. These people will not be resurrected until the millennial kingdom comes to an end. Unbelievers will be resurrected after the millennial kingdom ends, and then they will receive the great white throne judgment. The first resurrection refers to the resurrection of believers. All believers who have been saved from the beginning of creation to the end of the world will participate in the first resurrection. Verse 6. Blessed and holy are those who have part in the first resurrection. The second death has no power over them, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and will reign with him for 1,000 years. Blessed are those who participate in the first resurrection. All believers who have been saved will participate in the first resurrection. Believers will not encounter the second death. The second death is when all unbelievers will die. The second death means that the spirit will die. Unbelievers who encounter the second death will go to hell. We believers will resurrect and be kings alongside Christ for 1,000 years. All believers are kings. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 6, the holy city, the New Jerusalem, comes down from heaven. Only we believers who are resurrected will enter the New Jerusalem. Those who survive the Armageddon will live outside the city of the New Jerusalem. When the world is destroyed, a small number of people will remain alive on earth. These people will be the people outside the New Jerusalem. They will get married and have children, and they will eat the food of the world. They will not sin. There will also be no sicknesses. It will be the restoration of the Garden of Eden. There will be no wars. All will live in harmony with one another. Then in that place we will all be kings. We will be transformed in our spiritual bodies. We will enter and exit the city of the New Jerusalem. Then we will rule the people who are outside the city of the New Jerusalem. We are kings. Verse 7. When the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be released from his prison. When the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be released from prison. Verse 8. And will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. In number, they are like the sand on the seashore. The devil will deceive Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog symbolize the final Antichrist. They are the groups that stand against God. Genesis chapter 10, verse 2. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 1. Chapter 39, verse 1. In this way, the devil will deceive Gog and Magog and bring about war. Verse 9. They marched across the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of God's people, the city he loves. But fire came down from heaven and devoured them. The devil will gather Gog and Magog for battle and will attack the believers. The evil will surround Jerusalem. However, God will judge them. In the time of the kingdom of the 1,000-year reign, there will be those who will be deceived by Gog and Magog, and there are those who will not be deceived. Among them, there will be those who will accept our guidance and hear and believe the word of God. Those who do will not be deceived by Gog and Magog. However, those who are not chosen will be deceived by Gog and Magog. The unchosen will receive judgment before God and will perish. Here, the city he loves is the New Jerusalem that will come down from heaven. Chapter 21, verse 2. Verse 10. and the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur. The devil will be thrown into the fires of hell. The devil will receive God's final judgment. He will eternally be destroyed in the fires and in the lake of burning sulfur. This is hell. This is the place of punishment. The beast, the false prophets, and those who worked on behalf of the devil will be there. The false prophets and unbelievers will receive their punishments there. Now we will look at the theories of the millennial kingdom. There are 3 views regarding the millennial kingdom. First is the premillennial theory. Second is the postmillennial theory. Third is the amillennial theory. We believe in the premillennial theory. Those who argue for other theories are not to be considered heretical. It only means to think about what complements the will of God according to the Bible. We will first look at the postmillennial theory. The postmillennial theory claims that the second coming of Jesus will take place after the millennial kingdom. Again, the theory believes that Jesus will return after the millennial kingdom. The gospel will gradually spread throughout the world. The entire world will be evangelized. All nations will return to Christ and become spiritually filled. The theory claims that this world will become an earthly heaven. It also claims that through man's education and enlightenment, all sins and absurdities will dissipate. Then there will be an earthly heaven. Then society will become ideally Christian, and personal values and freedom will be respected. Then there will be political peace and economic equalities. However, this theory is incorrect. We will be critical of this theory. In the Bible, it says that there will be an apostasy and great suffering before the second coming of Christ. This means that an apostasy will take place before Jesus' second coming. The Bible teaches that there will be great suffering before Jesus' second coming. This means that things will get worse. Matthew chapter 24, verses 26 through 31. Luke chapter 18, verse 8. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 through 12. Jesus said that the world will become more and more evil. The world will eventually become filled with sin and will receive judgment before God. The world will gradually fail to become a better place due to human powers. after God imprisons the devil, the millennial kingdom will come. Thus, the post-millennial theory is an incorrect theory. Second, the second theory we will discuss is the amillennial theory. The amillennial theory claims that the millennial kingdom does not exist. Those who assert that the amillennial theory is true say that the 1,000 years in chapter 20 is not a real number. They believe that the number 1,000 is not a real number, but a symbolic number. They claim that the millennial kingdom is the period between Jesus' first coming to earth and Jesus' second coming. They claim that the New Testament church generation is the millennial kingdom. Then in verse 4 it says, came to life. In verse 5 it says, did not come to life. Again, in verse 5 it says, did not come to life. Did not come to life is anezizan in Greek. Again, did not come to life is anezizan in Greek. Anezizan. Anezizan. Did not come to life is anezizan in Greek. Anezizan. In verse 4 it says ezizan. In verse 4, came to life is ezizan. In verse 5 it says anezizan. This word comes from came to life. However, amillennialists interpret this as rebirth. However, we who believe in the premillennial theory interpret came to life as to resurrect. Therefore, came to life does not mean rebirth, but means to resurrect. In the second half of verse 5, it says, this is the first resurrection. It clearly says, this is the first resurrection. Therefore, to reign as kings means to resurrect and reign as kings. It means that believers will reign as kings in their resurrected bodies for 1,000 years. However, amillennialists claim that this means rebirth. Again, in verse 5, it says, this is the first resurrection. And it is correct to interpret this as to resurrect. Therefore, it is wrong to say that the New Testament church generation is the millennial kingdom. Christ's second coming appears in chapter 19, verses 11 through 16. Then in chapter 20, the millennial kingdom appears. Chapters 19 and 20 correlate with each other. Jesus' second coming is in chapter 19, and the millennial kingdom follows in chapter 20. However, amillennialists claim that there is no correlation between chapter 19 and chapter 20. There is indeed a correlation between chapter 20 verse 4 and chapter 20 verse 10. In those verses, there are people who did not worship the beast and his image. Then in verse 10 it says, "The devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur." Thus, there is a close relation between chapters 19 and 20. Then in verse 2 it says that the devil will be bound in the abyss for 1,000 years. However, let's just say that the New Testament church generation is the millennial kingdom, as the amillennialists say. Verse 2 says that the devil will be bound. Then right now, in the New Testament church generation, are there no works of the devil? No, the devil still works today. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, it says, "The devil prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." Therefore, the devil works in the New Testament church generation. Hence, the amillennialists' beliefs are incorrect. The devil works in the New Testament church generation. They interpreted the fact that the devil will be bound for 1,000 years. Then when the 1,000 years pass, the devil will be set free. Then in verse 8, it says that the devil will deceive Gog and Magog. We who believe in the premillennial theory believe that the deceiving of Gog and Magog will take place after the millennial kingdom. The amillennialists cannot interpret deceive Gog and Magog. There are many scholars who stand for amillennialism. Again, there are many scholars who stand for amillennialism. Scholars who argue for amillennialism include Abraham Kuyper, Herman Bavinck, Louis Berkhoff, G. Voss, W. Hendrickson, Augustine, Calvin, and Lenski. Yet, these people's claims that amillennialism is true does not make it true. We will now look at premillennialism. There are many who believe in premillennialism. The following are those who believe in premillennialism: J. A. Bengal, J. P. Lange, H. Alford, Trench, G. E. Lod, and Andrews. These people claim that the historical premillennial theory is true. Premillennialism is the third theory we will look at. We just looked at the names of those who believe in the premillennial theory. Premillennialism claims that Christ's second coming will take place before the millennial kingdom. Jesus will return before the millennial kingdom. Let's pause for a moment. There is the 7 years tribulation. Then there is the millennial kingdom. Premillennialism is the belief that Jesus' second coming will take place before the millennial kingdom comes. Thus, the 1,000-year reign will literally take place on this earth, just as it is written. We will reign on this earth alongside Christ for 1,000 years. Then there is the historical premillennial theory and the dispensational premillennial theory. The dispensational premillennial theory is incorrect. Dispensational premillennialists claim that Israel and the church is the foundation, and there will be continuous distinctions. This means that there will be distinctions made between Israel and the church. Then there will be restoration of current Israel. However, we believe that the current Israel land is not the kingdom of God. We believe that Israel in the Old Testament symbolizes today's church. It symbolizes today's church. However, the dispensational view states that the current land of Israel will be restored like the times of King David. They believe that Israel will encounter a national restoration. They claim that there will be restoration of Judah. They believe that this is the restoration of the millennial kingdom. However, we who believe in the historical premillennial view assert that the church is considered a spiritual Israel. We assert that the church is a spiritual Israel. We believe that Israel in the Old Testament symbolizes today's church. Again, we believe that the Old Testament prophecies regarding Israel will be fulfilled through the church. The dispensational view divides the era of mankind into 7 periods, hence the dispensation. First of the 7 dispensations is innocence. Second is conscience. Third is human government. Fourth is promise. Fifth is the law. Sixth is the church. Then seventh is the millennial kingdom. Hence, the dispensation. These people believe in earthly reign and the restoration of the current carnal land of Israel. Now we will look at the historical premillennial view that we believe to be true. We have written it out on the screen. Take a look at the board. There is the 7 years tribulation. There is also the millennial kingdom. Then there is the great white throne judgment. The 7-year tribulation can be divided into two. The first 3.5 years and the second 3.5 years, or also known as the first 1,260 days and the second 1,260 days. 3.5 years and another 3.5 years. This is the number chosen by God. This is the number chosen by God. We do not know exactly how long the 7 years will be before the 7 years tribulation will be the trumpet wrath. Let's review. There is the millennial kingdom, then the great white throne judgment. It includes the 7 seals and the trumpet wrath. It also includes the 7 bowls of wrath. The Armageddon is a part of the 7 bowls of wrath. Jesus' second coming will take place at that time. Jesus will come again before the millennial kingdom comes. Yet there are 3 views within the historical premillennialist theory. There is the pre-tribulation rapture view. There is the mid-tribulation rapture view. Then there is the post-tribulation rapture view. The pre-tribulation rapture view states that the believers will not encounter the tribulation, but be raptured into heaven before the tribulation. The mid-tribulation rapture view states that half of the number of believers will encounter the tribulation and the other half will not. Hence, Jesus will come in the air and we believers will be raptured a little after the middle of the tribulation. This is the mid-tribulation rapture view. Another view claims that Jesus will return after the tribulation. This is the post-tribulation rapture view. We believe in the mid-tribulation rapture view. Jesus will come again in the air, and we will be transformed into spiritual bodies and go up into the air. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24, verse 22, that the days of the tribulation will be shortened. Jesus said that he would cut the tribulation short. Then in Revelation chapter 11, verse 11, after 3.5 days, Jesus called out to believers, "Come up here." Therefore, we will be raptured at that time. We will be in the air. The Armageddon will take place in the second half of the tribulation. Then once the battle comes to an end, the world will be destroyed. Then Jesus will return to earth. Jesus and all the believers will return to earth. Revelation chapter 21 says that a new Jerusalem will come down from heaven. Then the millennial kingdom will begin. After the millennial kingdom will come the deceiving of Gog and Magog. The devil will deceive the nations of Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog will surround the New Jerusalem and stand against it. They will deceive the believers. We believers will have been resurrected and reign as kings in the millennial kingdom. Then who are the people mentioned here? They are the small number of people who survived the Armageddon. These people will enter the millennial kingdom. They will have children. They will get married. These people will not have sinned because the devil will have been bound for 1,000 years. There will be no wars. There will also be no sicknesses. There will be no death. The people will live from the time of their birth until the millennial kingdom comes to an end. At that time, we will already be kings. We will be transformed into our spiritual bodies. We will be able to enter and leave the New Jerusalem. We will govern these people. Again, there will be a first half of 3.5 years and the second half of 3.5 years. The trumpet wrath will take place in the first half. Then around the middle, Jesus will come again in the air, and we believers will be raptured. Then in the second half, there will be 7 bowls of wrath. The Armageddon will take place at this time. Then Jesus will return again to earth. Those who barely survive the Armageddon will be the people outside the city. These people will not die and continue to give birth. we will already be kings at this time. Then later, there will be the deceiving of Gog and Magog. Then the devil will be set free for a short time. The devil will deceive Gog and Magog and will bring about war. Then the great white throne judgment will take place. Revelation chapter 20, verse 11. This is also mentioned in Matthew chapter 25, verse 31. Those to the right of the great white throne are the chosen people, the sheep. They will enter the eternal heaven. Those to the left of the great white throne are the unchosen. They are the goats. They will enter eternal hell. Hence, we believe in the historical premillennial theory. We believers have already been resurrected. Therefore, we are able to enter the New Jerusalem and can enter and leave the city. There are people who live outside the city. They are those who survived the Armageddon. They will not die, but continue to have children. We believers will reign over these people as kings. We will be kings for 1,000 years. Those outside the New Jerusalem city will continue to have children. They will not die. Then at the end of the millennial kingdom, the devil will be set free. There is Gog and Magog. We believers have already been resurrected. However, there will be those who will be deceived and those who will not be deceived. Those who will be deceived by Gog and Magog are the unchosen. Those who are not deceived are the chosen ones. Then the chosen among the millennial kingdom will enter eternal heaven with us believers. Then the unchosen among the millennial kingdom will join those already in hell for an eternity. Those who are chosen during the great white throne judgment will enter heaven for an eternity. However, the unchosen will be thrown into eternal hell. Unbelievers will be in their graves, and they will be resurrected for the great white throne judgment. When will we believers be resurrected? We will be resurrected during the tribulation, at the time of Jesus' coming in the air. Unbelievers will remain in their graves and will be resurrected right before the great white throne judgment. This is known as the second resurrection. This is the resurrection of the unchosen. Revelation chapter 20, verse 5. Thus, the sheep, the chosen people, will enter eternal heaven. Then the goat, the unchosen people, will enter eternal hell. Here we will conclude the 16th lecture on Revelation. Thank you.